Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Adam.
Hello.
So today our story takes place in Omaha, Nebraska, which I feel like everyone is pretty familiar with, or at least has heard of it.
Where?
Oh, well, that's a great start. Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Pay attention.
Sorry.
So, I was going to say, we were there a few years back, and I highly recommend the zoo. I think it's awesome, except for the primates.
Yeah, but the red panda is adorable.
Yeah, the primates were just super depressing, but...
The downtown area was actually really cool, too.
Oh, yeah, when we got breakfast and stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. That was a pretty nice area. But minus the construction. Remember they were doing all that construction to get some, like, the one bridge, over the bridge or whatever?
The bridge and everything, yeah.
But...
Other than that, though.
I was going to say, though, when I was looking into Omaha, just because I don't know, I feel like I don't know too much about it outside of, like, obviously, it's known. I did find, like, the nitty gritty, I guess. What I didn't realize was I didn't realize that Omaha, the, like healthcare, agriculture, finance, and transportation are, like, the key industries that drive the city's economy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, BNSF is, like, headquartered there, or Union Pacific, one of them.
I don't even know what that is.
Big train company.
Oh.
Like freight train shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's like a significant, apparently it makes it like the significant commercial hub in the Midwest.
I want to say that's where Warren Buffett is. It's where
Yes.
Berkshire Hathaway is.
Isn't that where Warren Buffett's from?
Yeah, I believe so.
I feel like because I started reading a
Still
book.
lives there, too.
Oh, really? Because
But
I started
pretty
reading...
Sure he lives in like a fucking regular suburb. Like he's not like I got a mega mansion. Fucking pretty sure he's like I live in the burbs next to like other people with money, but not like billionaires.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I just actually started reading a book about him, so that's the only reason why I know it was Omaha, Nebraska.
The guy owns everything, literally.
So the other thing I did find interesting too is apparently the population though is declining. Today it's 477,053 people, and the last consensus in 2020, the population was reported to be 492,758. So I thought it was weird that it's actually declining, but it's still the most populous city in Nebraska.
That's crazy. It's not even 500,000, and that's the most populated.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm just kind of curious as to why it's declining. You know? I found it interesting.
That is kind of weird. Because I thought Omaha was actually, like, building up and stuff.
And with all that, like...
The construction and shit we saw, and...
Well, I just feel like, too, it's like, since it's such a major city, you would think that more people tend to...
flock to me.
Yeah, instead of pull away. Especially
because it's probably a cheap city to move to.
Well, and because everybody's leaving all the other cities, like New York and California, all the shit in California and stuff, like LA and everything. People are trying to leave that. So you would think Omaha would be like finding, yeah. Like how like they took over like Oklahoma City now and shit. Like you would think that Omaha would be on that list.
Away. It's like right there.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
But our story takes place back in 1958. So I can only assume back then the population was most likely not as high. I could easily be wrong here, but I would just assume there's probably significantly less people in 58.
Probably makes sense.
So let's bring our attention now to Bill and Opal Arnold. Bill and Opal at the time live in Omaha with their two sons, 16-year-old William Leslie, he goes by, and 13-year-old James Jim Arnold. They live in a standard home in a nice area, and sources said that they lived so close to one of the largest horse race tracks that you could basically hear the horses from their stables. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like they showed, I found like a little map that was drawn up from back in the day, and it's like racetrack. And then, like, their house.
That's fucking nuts.
So, Bill Arnold made a good living and was the owner of the Omaha Regional Office of Watkins Products, which I'm assuming is Watkins products. They sell they still exist today. They do like witch hazel and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
They got like the old school label. I'm assuming it's that product. So, or that line of products, I should say, that brand. This consisted of door-to-door salesmen pushing cleaning supplies, spices, and other household products, which, I'm sorry, is just so of the times. And Opal is obviously a housewife and a stay-at-home mom who made sure to keep a tidy home while managing their 2 teen boys and clearly doing the typical housewife duties. I mean, could this be any more 50s?
I don't think really much more 50s.
Right? However, surprisingly, Opal was not the warm and fuzzy maternal mom, one might say. According to sources, Opal most likely suffered from mental illness. But this is the 50s, so in the words of James and Jimmy, cheer up, bitch times. So, there was never any formal diagnosis given, and it probably didn't even exist at the time. I feel like for women back then, you were either normal or hysterical, and there was really no in between. So
times haven't changed.
Yeah, so so who really knows? But I mean, there were reports of her having to be hospitalized twice for quote unquote nervous breakdowns. But honestly, again, who really knows the extent of these so-called breakdowns, because it is the 50s, and back then I feel like anything could have been deemed this. So
they were probably like, I'm falling off the fucking cliff. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I felt it was important to mention. But what we do know about Opal was that she was more domineering when it came to parenting and the household. And basically what she said went. That's like it was her way or no way. She would often dictate in a nonsensical manner where she would say one thing and then abruptly flip the switch, which sounds like they were probably walking on eggshells more days than not. It's just like that whole, like you think everything's fine and then in a moment everything's
not fine.
Yeah, so you never really, I feel like with people like that, you don't know what, because there really isn't anything to set them off or to make them make these decisions. It's very chaotic and erratic, so you just never know, and I just feel like that creates an environment where you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah, because it's a crapshoot every interaction.
Yeah, exactly. So now, her 16-year-old son, Leslie, was no saint either. He absolutely added to the tension in the household, particularly with his anger. Friends of his said that he had a bad temper and would be quick to fly off the handle. In grade school, Leslie struggled to manage his emotions, which often landed him in trouble. But as he approached high school, this seemed to stop being an issue as far as school went. But once he went home, his rage and anger issues just continued. So I thought that was interesting that he was able to control it at school, but then would just unleash at home. So there's some regulating there.
That's some discipline or something.
Yeah, you definitely are aware that you have to control it in a certain sense. So I feel like it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
However, despite these issues, Leslie had a lot of interest and maintained a full schedule. He was on the baseball, track, and wrestling team and participated in ROTC, but his true passion in the world was music. Leslie loved music, and he was very talented at it. His instrument of choice was the saxophone. Saxophone. That's all I think of when I hear that. And he played it in the school band, in the ROTC band, as well as played at school dances and events. Unfortunately, though, not everyone agreed with or even cared about Leslie's extracurriculars, and by everyone, I mean Opal. Apparently, she made fun of his interest in music and never supported him. According to sources, she never even attended a single sporting event of his, which, as a kid, that just has to sting.
Definitely.
That's gotta hurt so bad.
Yeah.
That's all you want. You look up in the stands, you just want to see your parents. You look over at the sidelines, you just want to see your parents. And,
that sucks.
Yeah, that's really, really shitty. So, hearing all this, it's no surprise that as Leslie got older, Opal and his relationship became increasingly volatile, with constant arguing and fighting within the household between the two. One of the most reoccurring arguments they had was over Leslie's use of the family cars. According to him, his mom would agree to him being, allow him to use it only to change her mind at last minute, which is the same thing like I was saying before.
Yeah.
She just like
flipping a switch.
Yeah. So, and again, this is just, I feel like stuff like that's just cruel to do to a kid.
If you're intentionally doing it, you're a real piece of shit.
And kids, when they get their hearts set on something and then you take it away from them, so
the end of the world.
It is, and it's also like it's devastating. Mm-hmm. It's such a devastating thing to a kid. So, and then at 16, I feel like that's another thing where every day is something could be the end of the world. It's so over, like they over exaggerate, or what is it, overreact and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's all hormones.
Yeah, so it's just like sounds like pretty shitty on a day-to-day for these two. Leslie also painted a lot of punishments he received from his mom as being unfair, as if she was completely unreasonable. However, his brother Jim did shed some light on this and stated that these, more often than not, were consequences Leslie kind of brought on himself by acting out and behaving poorly. I do think it is important to mention, though, that neighbors did confirm Leslie's claims that Opal was much harder on him than Jim, with many of them saying it appeared that Jim was basically an only child with the way she treated him compared to how she treated Leslie.
That is horrible.
Yeah, so that says a lot. I also never understood how, like, as a parent, you could be so mean to one and then so, like, loving and caring
on a pedestal
to another. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't get that.
It makes no sense.
They're
both your kids. You should put them, like...
And, I mean, even if one's, like...
One's a favorite, okay, fine, but...
But, like, or... I was gonna say, like, even if one's, like a shithead and stuff, but, like, you still, like... I think it's not even about, like, it's more about, like, the treatment. Like, why would you scold this one and then the other one can do no wrong? That's what I find weird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess you said that, the pedestal. Okay, you put the one on the pedestal. It's just weird.
Doesn't make sense.
I don't get that. So, I am not sure how true this next statement is, but according to Leslie, Bill, on the other hand, was a mild-mannered man who tolerated Opal for the sake of keeping the family together and suggested to Leslie he do the same. I don't know, like, you gotta take that with a grain of salt. That's what he said. I don't know if Bill actually said that or felt that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, you gotta learn, or I feel like I learned when I was doing this case. Leslie says a lot of stuff. You don't know how true it is, though, basically. Everything's with a grain of salt with this one. But tolerating his mother was something that became harder and harder with every incident and altercation Opal and him got into. Besides the car, another major source of contention was Leslie's girlfriend. Opal didn't approve of them dating, and she often reminded Leslie of this by repeatedly telling him she was no good for him and referred to the girl and her family as trash, like all the time.
Trash.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're already having issues with your mom, and then when she's going to talk shit about your girlfriend, and when you're 16, I mean, come on. The person you're dating is legit your world, so, you know what I mean? So it's like, obviously this clearly bothered the shit out of him. He cared immensely for her, and these digs just enraged Leslie in addition to everything else Opal was doing. So it just fueled the fire, basically. So when Saturday, September 27th came around, Leslie started off in a good mood. He had plans to see his girlfriend later that night for a movie date, and his parents had already said he could use the car, because again, it's the 50s, so it's driving.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to one. Around 11 a.m. that day, he was on the phone with his girlfriend. And now this is old school style, so meaning he had the long-ass cord that stretched all the way from the phone dock to another room/area of the house.
Can I just say this? I feel like if drive-ins were a thing today, people would be horrible at them.
Well, because people are horrible at everything. Like, people are horrible in a movie theater.
They would be like blasting fucking music. They'd be leaving their fucking headlights on.
Probably.
They'd be fucking yelling and screaming at each other to, like...
Fighting over spots.
Yeah. People would be such garbage humans at a drive-in today, I feel like.
I totally agree, because people don't know how to respect the communal space anymore. People are entitled, selfish pricks.
Mm-hmm. It'd be so annoying. It'd be so irritating. But I digress. So
Yeah.
I just have to throw that one out there.
You're very accurate, though. I don't doubt that for a second. I have little faith in the human race these days. So, as I was saying, the long-ass cord from the phone dock to another room/area of the house. You know, so you can have some sense of privacy.
The 300-foot stretchy thing.
Exactly. So it sounds like what he was doing was Leslie was sitting at the bottom of his basement steps with the door closed, when out of nowhere, Opal busts through the door and begins scolding Leslie for having the door closed while talking on the phone. And then she decided to take the opportunity to start talking shit about his girlfriend, who she knew was on the phone and probably could hear. So, a very angry Leslie warned Opal that if she kept on talking about his girlfriend that way, then she would be sorry. So Opal said that she had reached her limit with him too, and now he was no longer allowed to borrow the car, and he wasn't allowed to go to the drive-in that night. So after being told this, Leslie, obviously angry, punched the wall and was sent to his room. In his room, he listened to some music while he tried to figure out how he could get Opal to change her mind and let him have the car for the night again. So he decides to go back downstairs to try and reason with Opal, but unfortunately it did not go well. And the two just continued arguing, so much so that Opal, growing tired of the arguing, finally told Leslie, go outside and take a moment. She was basically get the hell out of here. So Leslie walked around outside for some time, and then he retreated back to his room. A few hours go by, and Leslie has come up with a plan. First, he makes his way into his parents' closet, where he obtains a .22 caliber rifle that he would often use for shooting rabbits. He took the rifle and headed downstairs to confront Opal, who was in the dining room. His plan was to show his mom just how serious he was about going out that night, and that he was determined for her to take back what she said and let him use the car. That's according to him, so who knows how true, this really is. But when he confronts Opal with the gun, she legit looks at him, laughs, and says, "What are you gonna do, shoot me?" And with that, Leslie pulled the trigger and Opal fell to the floor. Since she was shot, she was screaming in pain, and Leslie said he didn't want to hurt her, but he just kept hearing her laughing at him, and he couldn't take it anymore, so he stood over her and shot his mother again and kept shooting her until he put 6 rounds directly into her chest. He couldn't explain why he kept shooting, and he claimed, again, he didn't want to hurt her, but he just kept shooting her. So, I don't really know.
That's
yeah. So, I feel like that might have been his version of I blacked out or I saw red.
Yeah.
Without saying that. But as Opal is in the midst of dying, Leslie tries to speak to her, but at that point, Bill walks through the door, arms filled with groceries, and just sees his wife on the floor and Leslie just standing there holding a gun. He screams, "What have you done?" and lunges at Leslie, but misses, at which point he takes a moment and he's just staring at Opal's lifeless body on the floor, and then goes after Leslie again. So Leslie raised the gun and shot Bill. Bill falls to the floor, and just like he had with Opal, he stands over his father and proceeds to shoot him 6 times too. Bill died on his dining room floor near his already dead wife. What a fucking scene.
So sad.
Just think of also the amount of blood and I'm just envisioning you just any other morning, any other day, I went to the grocery store. I left the grocery store. Everything was fine. I come home to this. Is that not so insane?
That's a horror movie.
It just seems unreal.
Yeah.
That's what's stuff. What is it? Stuff that nightmares are made of, or whatever the saying is. That's what that is. That's insane.
Definitely is.
The last thing you would expect after just doing a grocery run. You're literally just doing a grocery run.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Probably going to get the stuff for dinner that night. Isn't that crazy? So immediately after killing Bill, Leslie drops the gun and runs into the living room as his actions are, starting to set in. It took him about an hour and a half to pull himself together, and once the weight of everything settled, he began the next phase, which is obviously the cover-up. So first, he dragged their bodies through the kitchen and down into the basement. The dining room had a rug where Opal and Bill died, so it was obviously soaked in blood, and Leslie knew he had to get rid of it. So he rolled it up and put it in the garage. He then called his neighbor and told him a story he had concocted about his parents needing to abruptly leave because it turns out his grandparents were traveling by train to California, and when the train got to Wyoming, his senile grandpa left the train and wandered off. So his parents had to go help look for him. I don't know why, but this story makes me laugh. Every time I've read it, it makes me laugh. I don't know why. But with his parents being gone, he was wondering if the neighbor, who is Mr. Grossman, wouldn't mind watching his younger brother, Jim, until they returned. So Mr. Grossman agreed. No problem there. Luckily for Jim, he was not home that morning. He was actually down at the horse track working as an usher when all of this basically transpired. But eventually he would be returning home, and so Leslie knew he had to do something to prevent Jim from entering the home. So he made sure to meet Jim outside as he was walking up from his ushering shift. And that's where, Leslie quickly told him what happened and brought him over to the Grossmans. Jim never suspected a thing. The whole time he was convinced his mom and dad simply left to go help his grandparents. So once Jim is taken care of, Leslie returns home so he could continue cleaning up the mess. And then once done with that, he made sure to clean himself up because remember, he's got a date to get to.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't skip a beat.
Oh, come on.
Leslie goes and picks up his girlfriend and her brother, and all of them head to the drive-in to watch a double feature. From there, they headed to a burger and malt shop, where old cool kids go. And as the night came to an end, Leslie drives his girlfriend home and then heads home himself. Only once home, he didn't really feel comfortable anymore in his own house. Apparently, he's a little squeamish about dead bodies, I guess.
Probably because left them.
Yeah, because he was struggling with being home and with them being there. So he literally said that the thought of sleeping in the house with their bodies made him uneasy. So he first attempted to spend the night in his car, only it was way too cold that night to do so. So he eventually did go inside, but he basically went into his bedroom, he turned on his music, and he had to close the door in order to fall asleep. When he woke up in the morning...
The music's weird.
Probably to
because it's too quiet.
Yeah, I would think probably to take his mind off of it, because back then they didn't have, in the 50s, they didn't have programming like we do now.
That is true.
It would, remember, your TV would go to static back in the day, which they definitely had TV in 58.
Not everybody, but
that's what I'm saying. Because I'm he might not have even had a TV in his room. He probably only had a radio.
Yeah, I feel like in the 50s, if you had a TV in your room, you were a fucking millionaire.
Yeah, and I feel like even then, it was, even people who had money only had, the TV in the family room or the living room. It wasn't a regular, everybody had one.
Because there was no point.
No.
Because there
was 4 channels.
7 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night.
And there was only 4 channels.
Half of it was news.
Yeah, so that would, I think that's probably why.
Actually, no, it was only 2 hours. But...
So when he woke up, he first went to church, and ironically, the priest was talking about crime, and Leslie couldn't handle it, so he ended up leaving during mass. I feel like guilty conscience. Then
went to confession.
Oh yeah, because they can't rat you out. Then during the afternoon, which always makes
encourage you to rat yourself out.
It just makes me wonder, growing up,
how many confessions have been heard?
Especially because being around those people so much, because my mom's heavily involved in the church, being an altar server, knowing the priest and stuff like that, how many confessions, murder confessions, have you gotten?
Just crazy shit.
Or, yeah, in general. I'm so curious. I'm just so... If that's like a morbid curiosity of mine.
Totally.
So during the afternoon, after he left the mass, he saw his backyard neighbor and he just asked if he could, simply borrow a shovel.
Can a priest or a bunch of priests anonymously write a book of confessions they heard? Like, you don't know the priest, you don't know the church that it's coming from. It's just, it's legitimately from a priest who heard a confession and somebody said, blah, blah, blah.
I don't know, because I don't know the ethics that they have to abide by, because like in counseling, the ethics that like you would have to abide by is, because it's confidential, like you can't release the names or anything like that. But if you are like, say, talking to, say, another therapist or talking to somebody else, like you can say like, I have a patient and blah, 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 and talk about it, but you can't share who the person is, because then that would be the ethical violation. But if you're just talking about the situation and not revealing who the person is, then it's fine. But I don't know if priests have different ethical standards.
Because if there are, like, if it's something that they could do, they need to get on that shit.
Yeah, that would be in a very interesting book. You should probably hold the mic closer to your mouth so people can hear you. I feel like you hold it too far away, and you're still really low.
It's always a fucking complaint.
Yeah, usually. It's not my fault. You give me reasons to complain. We got totally sidetracked, though. Okay, so...
Somebody should write that book, though.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea. Back to it. He borrows a shovel from his neighbor. Then he spent the rest of his day hanging out with his girlfriend and her family until he went back home. And under the cloak of darkness, he went over to a lilac bush that sat in a far back corner of the Arnold's backyard, and he just started digging. The hole took him 2 hours to dig, and when he was done, a very exhausted Leslie went into his house, down into the basement. He took Bill's belt off of him and wrapped it around his feet and used that to drag his dad's body up the stairs, through the garage, into the front yard, then around the yard to a side gate, through the backyard, and dumped Bill into the hole. But not before removing the belt. That he still needed, because when he was done moving Bill, he went back into the basement and did the same thing with Opal's body, dumping her right on top of Bill. Before he buried his parents, Leslie said a little prayer, then covered them up with dirt. But he wasn't done yet. Next, he had to get rid of the bloody carpet sitting in the garage. So he loaded it up in the car, drove to a bridge that overlooked the big Pavilion Creek, and threw it over. Around midnight, he found himself at the Grossman's house and told them he didn't want to be home alone and wanted to sleep with Jim. So Mrs. Grossman let him in, and when she did, she noticed that Leslie's hands were covered in broken blisters. When Leslie woke up that Monday morning, he still had one more final step to complete before his cover-up could come to fruition. So he got up and went to Bill's office to open it for the day and relay the story of where his dad was to the employees and ensure one of his assistants wouldn't mind watching over things until his father was able to return. Once this was completed, Leslie headed off to school and quickly fell back into his daily routine as if nothing had happened. Leslie and Jim didn't return back to their house until about 5 days later with Jim still being completely unaware that his parents lay dead in the backyard. Is that not insane?
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, this story, it gets even crazier. Whenever anyone would inquire about Bill and Opal, Leslie would just tell them they were away. The more days that passed, the more suspicious family members became of where Bill and Opal were and what was really going on here. So after about 8 days, things came to a head when Leslie comes home from school and is met with his grandparents. Yes, the very same grandparents he has said his parents had to go meet in Wyoming. So his grandparents wanted to know where the hell Bill and Opal were, because it has been days since anyone has been able to get a hold of them. What made his grandparents spring into action was actually because days before, Leslie's grandma actually called Mrs. Grossman in regards to instructions Opal may have left while she was out of town, at which point Mrs. Grossman inquired about her husband, and The obvious confusion in the grandma's voice set off alarm bells for Mrs. Grossman as well as the grandma. So Mrs. Grossman at this point already had her suspicions, so when his grandma had no idea what she was talking about, it essentially validated her sense that the story was just not adding up. She took it upon herself to look up the train schedule from the day that Leslie said his parents had to leave. And sure enough, what she found was that no train existed at the time the Arnolds would have left, according to Leslie's story. In addition to this...
all this pre-planning and thinking. It's the one thing you don't think ahead on.
Yeah, it's always the little details. And I just think it's funny because she's like her own, like back in the day, see, our armchair detectives always existed. Mm-hmm. So in addition to this, another neighbor had shared with Mrs. Grossman about the tumultuous relationship between Opal and Leslie and how recently the arguments have been escalating into violent episodes. So by Friday the 10th, Mrs. Grossman called the police to relay what she uncovered and discusses her concerns with the whole situation and pointed out to authorities that Leslie, by his own admission, was the last person who saw them alive. Meanwhile, the Arnold's relatives, who were also growing suspicious of Leslie and his so-called story, wanted to go to the police, but it was Leslie's grandma who told the family to hold off because she didn't want anyone jumping to conclusions. However, after she spoke to Mrs. Grossman, she couldn't deny it any longer and knew that they needed to go by the Arnold home and get to the bottom of this while Leslie's uncle reported Opal and Bill as missing. And he also told authorities that his nephew, Leslie, was the last one who saw them. So the following day, the police went and picked up Leslie and brought him down to the station for questioning. Leslie eventually broke down and confessed to everything. He explained, the fight and how it was already agreed upon. He could use the car that night for his date, but then Opal changed her mind. And how he never planned on shooting her. He just wanted to show her he meant business. And that he was going to use the car that night regardless. Like, he was like, no, I'm taking the fucking car.
Sounds like a punk.
So after he provided his statement, the detective asked him if he would, be willing to show them where the bodies were. And Leslie responded just, if I have to, I will. Which I feel like if he had a lawyer there, it would have been an entirely different response, right?
Absolutely.
Like.
Or if he would have just known.
Or if he would have just said no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could just, you could just say no. Right?
Yeah. I thought you always had the right to say, I'm not speaking unless I have an attorney with me.
No. Because isn't that a part of Miranda rights? And that didn't come till well after. Isn't the attorney's thing like the right to an attorney? That's a Miranda right, which that didn't come till years later. When did Miranda rights come in? Isn't there
isn't it 60s or 70s?
Yeah, that's much later. Because this is 58. The Miranda rights are way later. Because I don't remember when they became a thing, but I
right to not incriminate yourself, and
it
goes further than that too.
Well, right. I'm not saying that he didn't have a right to have a lawyer, or anything like that. I'm just saying just in general, to answer that, if there was a lawyer present, they'd probably be don't answer that.
Oh yeah,
is what I was saying.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
or they'd be like, my client's not going to respond to that.
Yeah, or I plead the fifth. So that afternoon, the cops brought Leslie back to his house, and while neighbors and media looked on, Leslie pointed at the lilac bush that stood in the Arnold's backyard. Officer Paul Slinkard started digging, and it didn't take long before he uncovered a human hand wearing a watch and a bracelet around the wrist. Officer Slinkard had found Opal Arnold, as Bill's body would soon follow. Leslie was charged that Monday with 2 counts of murder. The prosecution kept pushing the narrative that Leslie loaded the gun to prove premeditation, but Leslie was adamant that the gun was already loaded, which is something he never wavered on. And I feel like that might be accurate. I don't know. How much was gun safety a thing back then? With keeping loaded guns in the house ready to go. I feel like that could easily have been already loaded.
I mean, it's very possible.
So a psychoanalysis, or however you say it, were conducted on Leslie, and it was determined that he was sane before, during, and after the murders. Although one of the evaluators did believe that Opal's behavior was a contributing factor to Leslie's state during the incident, which I feel like is kind of obvious.
Seems it.
I feel like she's like not to like it's not her fault that's how he handled his anger, but she's definitely like a catalyst for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Like I feel like that's like a thank you, Captain Obvious. So it was also reported that during one of the evaluations, Leslie did show remorse for what he had done. He also expressed remorse in a letter he wrote the Grossmans, explaining to them how, his parents were wonderful people and that this was something he learned a little too late. He also said in the letter that he was sorry and that he will never understand how he went so wrong. So, I mean, it's I don't know. I always question the remorse. Like, is it genuine? Is it,
Yeah, you never know. Is it legit?
yeah,
Or is it just maybe this will help me?
this looks good. So
I'm
I'm gonna
supposed to be remorseful.
exactly. This looks good, so I'll go ahead and and put this on the books,
Exactly.
But I like to think like people do feel somewhat bad. I mean, it doesn't change what they did, that's for damn sure, but it would be nice if that's a genuine remorse. So Leslie ended up pleading guilty to 2 reduced counts of second-degree murder on June 2nd, 1959, and he was sentenced to hard labor for the remainder of his life. But this is not where Leslie Arnold's story ends. Leslie went to prison, and while there, he was a model prisoner. He didn't cause any issues and spent most of his time in the prison music room. And then, after serving 8 years, he just vanished.
Really?
Vanished. Leslie Arnold, the very unsuspecting prisoner, concocted an escape plan with a fellow inmate and executed it successfully. With the help of a former inmate who was recently paroled, listen to this, Leslie and his partner were able to obtain rubber masks and saw blades because the guy legit just like walked up and threw them over the fence into the prison yard.
So 1950s, 60s, like Jesus.
Isn't that amazing? It's kind of like reminds me.
It's in like a bad movie.
Well, it reminds me of Bonnie and Clyde. How while their like buddy was in doing out of the prison doing the work with the rest of his like prisoners, they just rolled up and pretty much just were like,
come on,
yeah, we're taking him, and he just hopped in the car and they drove off. Like that's what that reminds me of. So Leslie and his partner used the blades to saw the bars off the window in the music room, and in order to make them appear to like not be sewn off, they used chewing gum to hold them in place. When they were finally ready to officially escape, they placed the rubber masks on their pillows to, trick the guards into thinking they were in bed. And then on July 14th, 1967, they removed the bars in the music room and went out the window. They ended up using a t-shirt to scale a 12-foot barbed wire fence that was located in a part of like the prison that pretty much had relatively low security. And then poof, they were gone. The 2 inmates were halfway to Chicago apparently before anyone at the prison even realized they had been missing. Search efforts included ground and air searches that crossed 4 states with the use of helicopters, airplanes, patrol troopers, sheriff deputies, as well as police officers, but they came up with nothing. The warden said it was the cleanest escape he has ever seen in his career.
That dude was planning it the whole time. He was a model from the day he got in. Being a model fucking inmate, he was planning that shit.
He just like it's probably one of those where he like already had the plan. He just now needed the people in place to help him execute it, you think?
Maybe, or just maybe the day he got in, he was like, okay, best way to go about escaping is by being the best fucking inmate you could possibly be because nobody will think twice.
Yeah, nobody's going to pay attention to you.
This guy hangs out in the music room all day.
He's a geek. We don't got to worry about him. Like something like that.
Meanwhile, he's cutting through the fucking bars.
Well, isn't it always the ones you wouldn't suspect?
The quiet ones.
Yeah. So, yeah, pretty crazy though. Like they like, and the thing with like the masks and stuff that reminded me of Alcatraz with the plaster heads and stuff like that, and how like
that shit actually works.
Yeah, I can't believe that they were like nobody even realized.
It's
So
amazing.
a full year actually had gone by before Leslie's partner was finally caught, which is how they knew that they were on their way to Chicago. So he ended up, walking authorities through the entire scape that night. He told U.S. Marshals that once they got out, they hopped a bus to Chicago and went their separate ways. Since that night, Leslie was legit never heard from again. It wasn't until years later that anyone would discover the truth about what happened to Leslie Arnold after arriving in Chicago. Of course, over the years, there were endless leads that went nowhere, and with every year that passed, the hope for finding Leslie was dwindling. That is until 2020 when U.S. Marshal Matthew Westover had the case hit his desk. Leslie's brother Jim had provided a DNA sample years prior, but at that time, obviously the public DNA database was not where not what they are now. So nothing, had ever come of it until Westover took that sample and uploaded it into a public database. Unfortunately, in 2020, there were still no matches, but out of nowhere in August of 2022, Westover gets an alert that a match has been made. Jim's sample had matched to a sample provided by a man looking for more information on his father. The only information this guy knew about his dad was that he was an orphan from Chicago. Westover ended up exchanging several messages with the son before officially meeting with him over video chat, and at which point that was when Westover revealed who he actually was, because up until that point, the son thought he was talking to like a potential like uncle or something because he thought he was talking to Jim.
Oh shit!
Yeah, Westover had it himself like pretty much listed as Jim, even though he was behind the DNA. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so he thought he was talking to a family member. Could you imagine?
That's fucking nuts.
Or a potential family member, I guess. But no, I guess you already know the DNA matches, so that's a family member, right? Yeah. So he reveals who he was, and then that, basically he tells him that he has been searching for his dad who escaped from prison back in the 60s. So he also went on to tell the guy that his dad was an orphan, but it was only because he had murdered his own parents. Obviously,
fucking crazy.
Yeah, could you with everything I read about, I'm like, could you imagine? So obviously this news stuns Leslie's son, but now with a known relative of the missing Leslie Arnold, U.S. Marshals are able to piece together what became of him after he made his way to Chicago and seemingly fell off the face of the earth. It turns out that once in Chicago, Leslie created pretty much a whole new life for himself. Within less than 6 months after his arrival, he had obtained a new identity and was now living life as John Damon. And I just kept going, Matt Damon.
Yeah. It's amazing.
He met his first wife while working in a restaurant. That's also a reference from Team America. I don't want people thinking that I'm making fun of
yeah, that's from a really funny movie.
Any like type of mentally disabled person. I was not. It is from Team America. Watch it. It's hilarious. Anyway, moving on. So he met his first wife while working in a restaurant. She was a divorcee who had 4 daughters. He eventually became a salesman, and to evade detection, he ended up relocating the family to Cincinnati, and then they moved to Miami. The marriage, however, did not last, and after getting a divorce, Leslie cut ties with the 4 girls and pretty much moved on with his life again. He went on to marry after meeting his now second wife, who was a foreign exchange student in LA at the time. Leslie had 2 children with her, a son and a daughter. In 1992, Leslie and his family ended up moving to New Zealand, and then in 1997, the whole family finally settled in Australia. So while there, Leslie managed to make a decent living, and according to his son, Leslie was almost overly supportive. He was very passionate about his kids having the best experiences and best opportunities that were possible. I think that speaks volumes of his childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's actually, I will say this though, it is nice to know that when he did finally like settle down and have kids, that he didn't repeat.
That he actually did a 180.
Yeah, like he wasn't overbearing and like what was the word for his mom, that she was like very like nonsensical in her disciplining and stuff like that. It's nice that he didn't do that and was the complete opposite.
Became a better parent.
Yeah, because that's what you can hope for, break the cycle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he always kept a small circle of friends and stuck to the story that he was an orphan from Chicago. That's all he would ever tell people. So the reason Leslie's son was resorting to an ancestry website to find more information on his father instead of obviously just asking was because Leslie actually had passed away back in 2010 on August 6th as a result of a clotting condition he apparently had for years. And, with the understanding that his dad was an orphan, Leslie's son was hoping to find someone that may have insight into his dad's past. Of course, what he found was not what he was expecting at all. He shared that after his dad passed away, he found his Bible and that a lot of lines pertaining to sin, guilt, and forgiveness were highlighted, leading the son to believe that what Leslie did weighed on him heavily until the day he died. I would have to agree. But I don't think you're really like combing the Bible a lot for that stuff unless you obviously are riddled with guilt.
Yeah, I would think. Seems like you're seeking it out.
Yeah, or like you're asking constantly, like trying to ask God at least for forgiveness. Yeah. And I mean, he was religious.
Makes sense.
So I mean,
it's crazy. You escape from prison. You just go on to live a whole life.
Yeah,
that's wild. You should have a movie written about it.
I think
you're like the horrible murder isn't cool, but the escape from prison, then you go on like you did it.
Yeah,
you legit fucking did it.
When you did what so few can attain and so many attempt,
and you did it in a major city. You didn't even go fucking hide.
And granted, back in the day, it's the 60s and stuff like that. But I think it's crazy that even though it was the 60s, that he wasn't caught at least by the 80s. He was not caught until technically 2022, recently, very, very recently.
That's crazy.
Insane. Absolutely insane. So his son also said that Leslie was a great father and, feels so fortunate about the life he has had, but he knows other people suffered because of his dad's actions. And I just have to say, speaking about other people, I think someone who is a really big victim in all of this and, kind of gets overlooked and forgotten about is his brother, Jim. Let's remember, Jim was only 13 years old when his parents were taken from him. He woke up that morning, went to work a shift at the horse track, and never saw his parents again. Just think about that.
That's so sad.
From that day on, his life was completely turned upside down. Besides that, after everything went down, he then also loses his brother. So essentially, his entire family is gone.
Loses everything.
In a 2-week span. In a 2-week span, this 13-year-old lost his entire family. How awful.
So sad.
How awful. I think also what he had to endure afterwards is awful because after Leslie blew up Jim's world and abandoned him, essentially, Jim was sent to live with relatives he hardly knew. Isn't that sad?
That's really sad.
It's just at 13, that has to be, that's devastating probably at any age, but at 13, that's such a critical time.
Yeah, coming into your own and making friends and shit in a different way and stuff.
Yeah, it's just such a critical time for any child in development. 13 is such a moment, and to have your whole world completely rocked, and then you can't even you're not even then shipped to people that you could feel 100% comfortable with. Relatives you hardly know. Think about you always had those aunts and uncles that you only saw at funerals. Could you imagine having to be forced to live with them?
No, that'd be so weird.
Yeah, it's just awful. The emotional damage he must have went through in the years that followed. I just can't even imagine. So in 2017, he spoke publicly and stated that he thinks about the events every day and that he has spent decades feeling crippled by shame and guilt, which, you shouldn't have that.
No.
You did nothing wrong. It's just so sad.
You shouldn't have guilt.
Or shame.
Yeah.
It's just sad. It's just so sad and unfortunate. So I wish I had happier words to end on, but the reality of the situation is many lives were shattered that day, with Jim's probably being the worst. And he should not be forgotten and is very much a victim of Leslie Arnold's actions. And on that terrible note, that, everyone, was the murder of Opal and Bill Arnold. So you know what that means, folks. It is now time for our shithead of the week. Adam, who do you have for us?
It's in Florida from a couple years ago. This dude Uninsky, something like that. He's 37, right?
Okay.
This motherfucker gets accused of some crazy shit. So he saw two students that he like was friendly with or whatever, and he knew they were like a couple.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Was he a teacher?
Oh yeah. He was a teacher's aide, some shit like that.
I was like, students. Okay.
He was
affiliated with the school in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Okay.
So he tells these two students that there's a room that they could go use, and if they want, they could go do whatever they want in there.
Ew.
And
I don't already like where this is going.
Yeah, so it turns out weird that this school has this, but there's like a two-way mirror in the room. I don't know the exact reason. I think it was like a audio video production type shit setup thing. So he stood behind it and videoed them.
Ew. Wait, how old are these kids? They're probably like
16, 17.
Kiddie porn. Ew.
And well, they finished doing their thing, whatever. Then he walked up to one of them and was like, yo, I saw what you did, whatever. I want some too. And apparently the girl was like, yo, I'm like underage. And he was like, it's all good.
Oh my God, I wish you could see my face right now.
Oh man, yeah. And then yeah, he didn't care about her age, and then that's when things kind of blew up, and then he got charged with a whole bunch of sex crimes. He was immediately fired, by the way.
I would hope so. Yeah. He wasn't just transferred to another one because he
had
tenure.
There was some weird, yeah, right? There was some weird fucking, I forgot to write it down, but it was like, it was specific for a person in an authoritative position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this criminal charge was specific for that. Like, you're a person in a
like abuse of power type deal.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because it's essentially it's an adult and a child.
Kid, yeah.
Even if they're 17, it's still
a kid.
It's still the dynamic too of teacher student, so like that's total abuse of power. It's kind of like what Clinton did to Monica Lewinsky. Abuse of power to 100%. Ugh, gross.
Yeah, it's gross. Guy had a huge neck too. It was so thick. It was like as thick as his head. It was crazy.
Ew. I don't know why that's so gross sounding. Huge neck.
It's thick.
Was it one of those where like his neck, his head, and everything's just like a block?
Yeah.
Ugh. Did he look like a creep?
I mean, you could, when you read it and then you look, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you first just looked at him, you'd be like, whatever.
He just seems like an average.
If you read it and then you go,
now I see it.
I think I get it.
Hindsight. Oh, that's gross. He didn't end up attacking that poor girl,
right? No.
Okay, so she got out unscathed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess also too when he got like charged up, they probably found the footage. Ew, had he done that to anybody else?
It didn't say, and I didn't see nothing about any other
like footage or anything gross with like minors and underage and stuff, or like that barely legal junk.
Teachers are gross.
I feel like everybody's gross these days. I don't understand why everybody is a diddler these days. What is going on with this world? What's in the water? I demand to know.
It's got to be something.
Because it's like every day I see so many stories. I'm like either parents are torturing their kids or like people
teachers are banging them. Or...
Yeah, there's so many women now too that are just diddling kids. I don't get it. It's so weird.
There's a lot more. I feel like it's more prevalent women.
It's honestly, it's very, very interesting that I feel like the dynamic has changed. Like obviously there's still the guys are still being accused, but I'm just noticing more and more that there's so many more women.
I'm noticing women not only more and more, but like being found guilty of like a litany of fucking
like multiple and I mean because I feel like for us growing up the huge like was the woman who with the sixth grader, and then she went to jail. She had his
didn't they get
baby.
married and
They're
shit?
married. I think they got
Yeah.
2 kids now. Like that was like our big like, oh my god. But and the only other woman was what's her face? Oh my god, I can't remember her name, but she got her like 16-year-old boyfriend and his friends to murder her husband. She like promised them like
I
a
feel like
Trans
that
Am and like
sounds
$100 or
familiar.
something. I can't remember. I
idiots.
cannot remember her name for the life of me.
That thing got T-tops.
But I feel like those were the only 2 women in like, and I mean, for us growing up, that was like over what type of span? But now it's like, I feel like every week I see a new story about a woman doing it. And I'm like, what is going on? Why is there so many adult women like molesting like young boys?
It's weird.
It's very, very strange. I would like to
know. It's not like kids today look older.
No.
They look fucking younger today.
Yes, much younger.
Like kids back in the 70s look like they were old as shit. Kids today, you're like, what are you, 9? Oh, I'm 36. Like, what the fuck?
Yes. It's so true because back then when you look at pictures of like a 17-year-old, they literally look 45.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's absolutely
nuts.
insane. So, yeah, I would love to know, or like maybe it's one of those where it's like maybe it was happening, but it wasn't as heavily reported because of like back then. I'm sure a lot of, even if you're a young guy, you're probably like that's a little shameful, or like how like you can't rape a guy. You know what I mean? Loser. Like, so I feel like that could have been it. So it wasn't as heavily as reported as it is now because now there's more of like a conversation around it. Like this is wrong.
Yeah.
Or how much of it also is being revealed because parents are discovering it with like social media and like phones and stuff like
and shit.
If I take your phone and I see your
Why
teacher,
you got a picture of your teacher's titties on here? What the fuck is the matter with you?
Like, what the fuck? This is inappropriate. I wonder how much of it's actually that. Like they're being found out, and not necessarily like the person's not kid's not coming forward, but the parents are finding out.
The parents find, yeah.
Oh my god.
Horrible.
Disgusting. What a sick world we live in. What is wrong with everybody? I just
a lot.
God. I can't like okay. On that note, thank you for listening, everyone. And if you liked hanging out with us, let us know by following us on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, and or YouTube. If there is a case you would like us to cover, hit us up at uafrpod@gmail.com. And yeah, just let us know. We plan to be back next week. I know, again, we've had a break, but I'll just be upfront with everyone. This is clearly not our full-time job. We both have full-time jobs and we have a toddler. So unfortunately, sometimes our weeks are crazy and we cannot get a chance to record. But when in doubt, we will eventually return. We will not just leave. So hopefully we will be back next week with another episode. And until then, please don't be a douche.
And don't be gross.
Yeah, for real. That's just like, I honestly don't understand. See ya.